because I've seen it all the time. So here I'm speaking to two great young ladies in our community, and you will see it around the university level time that they'll be engaged and take on with either Sikh Student Association, Sikh Heritage Month, or what have you. And then eventually, as the years continue to grow, that participation rate level drops, right? And I think we're doing a disservice to the community. In fact, I was just speaking to a friend last night. When you really think about it, that's 50% of who we are as a community, right? So how can we ever say that we're moving forward or we're being progressive if we're right off the bat, most of the time, not engaging or including 50% of who we are as a community in anything that we do, in anything that we decide, right? And so I think those are a couple of important pieces. I also think we as a community in Canada, because we're speaking for Sikh Heritage Month in Canada and in each province, have a huge responsibility around reconciliation. And I think that we have a responsibility and onus to educate ourselves to know what role that we play with respect to reconciliation with the First Nations people of Canada.
So a lot of the viewers watching here today are going to be youth, and kind of just want to ask, what kind of role do you think youth could play in accomplishing this goal?
Well, the first role that I could play, say, is to continue to be engaged, be active, be mindful, because I know we were all youth at one time, and we always talk, always feel like the world should change. It should change today, and it's not changing fast enough. And we can really get more confrontational than need be as part of that piece. But youth have a very important role, because I've always said, anytime I speak to schools and even to youth groups, I've always said, you're going to define not only our community, but you're going to define our country, right? And so it's really important that you embrace that role and understand that role and empower yourself through that journey, you know. And so one of the things I would always encourage, because I mean, I still got tons and tons of pieces, whether you're looking at pieces related to 1984 and this book, another one by Singh on, or you're looking at other things around heritage and history, a great book by Kashi House in England, which we partner with from many different projects. And this is a piece, I don't know if anybody's ever seen on YouTube, Lost Treasures of the Sikh Kingdom. It's a BBC documentary. The whole documentary revolves around Devinder Tour, who's one of the world's leading collectors of Sikh art and artifacts. And Kashi House has a number of great resources and books. This one's called Reflections of Amritsar, and books like Warrior Saints, right? I've shared other ones of like Jonathan Baldwin and stuff. You want to know and know about stories like Hardik Singh Malik, where you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked to know that the autobiography here, the foreword of this book, and I'll just quickly read it just so that we have a sense of how much learning there is to be done, because that's a critical role. You never, as a young person, want to stop the learning process, right? And so the first thing I would really tell young people is learn, because the more you have behind you, the greater impact you can make, right? And the foreword of this book, called A Little Work, A Little Play, it says, I consider it a privilege to write the foreword to the memoirs of an old and valued friend, H.S. Malik. My friendship with the author goes back long years. During World War I, we're both officers in the Royal Flying Corps, in which he served with such distinction. A few years later, we found ourselves as students together at Oxford. And so who do you think his best friend was? You'd be shocked to know when you find out the foreword was written by Lester B. Pearson, right? So here, one of his fellow flying mates, one of his best friends at Oxford, and they love sports and stuff like that, was Lester B. Pearson, right? And his commander was William Barker. And so there's so many different great stories that we have, both of our rich Sikh heritage, and also our rich heritage as Canadians in this country. And then we have our foundational, our theological, of what can empower us to go out and live what I call an exceptional life as a Canadian, to be actively involved in our community, the greater community, to making a difference, and to continue to be civically engaged. And so volunteering is really, really, really important too, to find ways to make sure that we're engaged in so many different sectors of the community, and never be shy to volunteer and give up our time, our energy, our resources, or our skills.
So you've talked of many resources. Is there one, like your top one resource that you would like advise all of the people watching here today to read or to watch?
I would say to read. I would say it's the Becoming Canadians book by Sarjeet Jagpal, and it's available online as a PDF now. So that's the reading piece. I think that we owe ourselves to know the rich history we have as Canadians. We actually have a heritage lineage, right? A pioneer history, a nation building history. So that's fundamental. That we should all know that living in Canada. The second piece that I would highly, highly recommend is to pick up this book, The Duty, Honor, Is It book piece itself, right? Because our valor and our contribution to military history is just phenomenal. And with respect to watching, I think I mentioned the BBC documentary called Lost Treasures of Sikh Kingdom, right? And some of the collection and the work of the vendor, because it combines those aspects itself. And I think those will eventually start us on the great journey to learn more about our people, our history, and our faith, right? Because then, we have a lot of resources online when it comes to spirituality and stuff like that. Whether it's websites like Sikhs.org or Sikhman stuff, there's a lot of places you can find some of that information in your spiritual journey as well.
So I just wanted to mention, so the point or the purpose of our Zoominars and our online seminars is really to represent a lot of Sikh heritage and put forward a lot of role models. So I know for many of the youth watching here today, you're one of their role models. We don't actively see a lot of Sikh representation in the media or in our day-to-day lives. So we want to thank you for all that you've done within our community in giving people this sort of inspirational work and making such amazing change. But that's all of the questions we have. Do you have any additional comments or questions you'd like to ask us?
No, I would just say that to continue doing the work that you're doing, empower yourself through knowledge, because I think the more you're aware of, the more in your role as community ambassadors, you can share that many more stories. Can you imagine, for teachers or for artists, or for writers, the amount of stories and identities that you can create by knowing, right? Because if you don't know, how are you going to share and how are you going to create that next piece? And so I think you guys are doing great work, and unfortunately in these times of international isolation, that we're still finding opportunities to connect, to engage here for us as members of the community and as Canadians, and whether we're in Alberta or we're here out in Mississauga, in Toronto, in Ontario, that we can still find commonalities for us to be able to inspire each other and be a resource and a support. And so the last thing I would say is, just like you guys reached out to me, my website is Pardeep.ca, and anybody can reach out to me for any time if I can be of support and make a difference. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Well, once again, we would like to thank you on behalf of our entire team and the community for taking time out of your schedule to come talk with us today. And thank you so much for sharing all of those wonderful resources. I know Simran and I will definitely be looking into some of those books.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you. And we'll find another time for me to come in person back to Edmonton.
For sure. We look forward to that.
Thanks. Take care.
You too. Thank you.